The Power of Positive Thinking, by Norman Vincent Peale. Introduction. A man, 40 years old, stood backstage in a city auditorium. The crowd had just filtered out, but he waited, his posture a study in desperation. He approached the speaker for the evening and asked, with a strange intensity in his voice, "May I talk with you about a matter of desperate importance to me?" They sat down together, and the man's story tumbled out. "I'm in this town to handle the most important business deal of my life," he explained. His voice was heavy with despair. "If I succeed, it means everything to me. If I fail, I'm done for." He went on to describe a crushing disbelief in himself. No confidence. A deep, gnawing discouragement that had followed him his entire life. He felt sunk. "Why is it," he lamented, "that all my life I have been tormented by inferiority feelings, by self-doubt?" The speaker listened patiently, then offered him not a complex psychological analysis, but a simple, practical formula. A tool to get him through the night and into that crucial meeting the next day. He wrote down a few words on a card. "Repeat these words on your way back to your hotel tonight," he instructed. "Say them over and over. When you wake up, repeat them 3 times before you get out of bed. On the way to your appointment, say them 3 more times. Do this with faith." The man looked at the card. The words were unfamiliar, but he read them aloud 3 times. "I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me." Something shifted in him. He stood up, squared his shoulders, and walked out into the night. He was still a pathetic figure, perhaps, but the way he carried himself showed that a seed of faith had already begun to sprout in his mind. That simple formula, he later reported, did wonders for him. This story, one of countless many, sits at the heart of one of the most influential books ever written, The Power of Positive Thinking. Published in 1952 by Norman Vincent Peale, this book has sold over 15 million copies and has been translated into languages all over the world. It wasn't written by a psychologist or a business guru, but by a minister from a humble Midwestern background who stumbled upon a profound truth, that the thoughts we hold in our minds have the power to create our reality. Peale himself was no stranger to self-doubt. As a boy, he was painfully thin and agonized about it. He was a minister's son, constantly held to a higher standard, and he was terrified of public speaking. He had to overcome his own deep-seated feelings of inadequacy. This book is not a work of theory, it's a manual of practical, spiritual techniques that he first used to save himself. Today, we're going to journey through the core lessons of this timeless classic. We're not just going to talk about thinking positively. We're going to uncover the practical, step-by-step formulas for overcoming defeat, breaking the worry habit, drawing upon a higher power, and fundamentally altering your life by altering your attitudes of mind. By the end of our time together, you will understand the simple, workable philosophy that has helped millions of people find peace, energy, and success, and you'll have the tools to start applying it in your own life, today. Book summary. Let's begin with a question that gets to the heart of so many of our struggles. Why do so many capable, intelligent people feel defeated? Peale would say it starts with a malady he calls the inferiority complex. It's a deep and profound self-doubt that makes us feel we just don't have what it takes. He tells a story about a survey done at a university. 600 students were asked to name their most difficult personal problem. What do you think they said? 75%, 3 out of every 4, listed a lack of confidence. This isn't an academic problem. It shows up in our daily lives. We go crawling through life on our hands and knees, defeated and afraid, convinced we can only ever get C's because we got C's in school, while someone else got the A's. We see someone who seems brilliant and successful, and we assume they were born that way, that they possess something we don't. Peale saw this firsthand, even in his own family. As a boy, He was convinced he was nothing special. He was a minister's son who didn't want to be a preacher. Everyone in his family was a natural public speaker, but for him, it was terrifying. He felt like a constant disappointment. So where does this feeling come from? Sometimes, it's from our childhood. Maybe you had a sibling who was always praised for being the smart one. Maybe you were told you were a preacher's son and had to be perfect. Or maybe, like Peale, you just didn't like being called skinny when all you wanted was to be strong. These little emotional wounds, these comparisons, they build up over time. They create what he calls power barriers in our personalities. The greatest secret, Peale discovered, for tearing down these barriers isn't to try harder or to pretend to be confident. It's to fundamentally change the source of your confidence. The secret is to fill your mind to overflowing with faith. A tremendous faith in a power greater than yourself, faith in God. And from that, a humble, realistic faith in yourself will naturally grow. But this isn't a vague, passive kind of faith. It's an active, powerful tool. He tells a story about a baseball team that was in a terrible slump. These were great players, stars even, but they had lost 17 of their first 20 games. They couldn't hit a thing. They were thinking defeat. They expected to lose, and so they did. Their minds were filled with doubt, and it froze their muscles, threw off their timing. The manager, a shrewd man named Josh O'Reilly, knew their problem wasn't physical, it was mental. At the time, there was a popular faith healer in the area named Schlater. So O'Reilly did something unconventional. He collected the team's best bats, put them in a wheelbarrow, and told the team he was going to get Schlater to bless them. When he returned, he announced jubilantly that the bats were now filled with a power that couldn't be overcome. What happened next was extraordinary. The very next day, the team got 37 hits and scored 20 runs. They went on to win the championship. For years afterward, players in the Southwest would pay a fortune for a Schlater bat. Now, were the bats magical? Of course not. But something tremendous happened in the minds of those players. Their thought pattern was completely rewired. They stopped expecting to fail and started expecting to win. They were no longer thinking doubt. They were thinking victory. They had tapped into the power of belief. This brings us to one of Peale's most foundational principles: your beliefs create your reality. If you expect the worst, you release a repulsive force that pushes the best away from you. But if you expect the best, you release a magnetic force that pulls the best to you. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's a law of the mind. William James, the great psychologist, said it perfectly: our belief at the beginning of a doubtful undertaking is the one thing that ensures the successful outcome of your venture. So, how do we cultivate this kind of belief, especially when we're drowning in doubt? Peale offers a few incredibly practical techniques. The first is to consciously control the thoughts you feed your mind. Think of your mind like a garden. If you let weeds, thoughts of fear, doubt, and resentment, grow, they will choke out everything else. You have to actively plant and cultivate flowers, thoughts of faith, confidence, and goodness. One man Peale knew, a traveling salesman, had a brilliant method for this. He was once filled with insecurities, afraid of everything. His business was suffering because he was projecting his fear onto his customers. Then he came up with a wonderful plan. On the dashboard of his car, he fastened 2 little clips. Each day, he would take a small card with a powerful, positive statement from the Bible and slip it under the clips. As he drove between appointments, instead of letting his mind wander into fear and defeat, he would read and repeat these phrases. Phrases like, "If God be for us, who can be against us?" Or, "If ye have faith, nothing shall be impossible unto you." He told Peale, "It is really wonderful the way this method has changed me. The old insecurities that used to haunt me are just about all gone. He had systematically re-educated his mind, replacing a pattern of fear with a pattern of faith. This leads to another crucial insight. A famous psychiatrist, Drive. Carl Menninger, once said, "Attitudes are more important than facts." Let that sink in. Any fact, no matter how difficult or seemingly hopeless, is not as important as your attitude toward that fact. You can let a fact overwhelm you mentally before you ever even start to deal with it. Peale tells a story about a man of 52 who came to him in complete despair. His business had been wiped out. "Everything is gone," he said. "I have nothing left. I'm too old to start over." Peale took out a piece of paper. "Let's write down the assets you have left," he suggested. "It's no use," the man sighed. "Is your wife still with you?" Peale asked. "Why, yes, of course," the man replied. "She's wonderful. She'd never leave me." "All right, that's number one," Peale said, writing it down. "How about your children?" "I have 3, he said, his voice softening, "and they've been wonderful. They told me, 'Dad, we love you, and we'll stand by you.'" "That's number 2, Peale said. "Got any friends?" "Yes," the man admitted. "They've been pretty decent." "That's number 3. How about your integrity? Have you done anything wrong?" "My integrity is all right," he replied. "My conscience is clear." Number 4. Your health? "My health is good." Number 5. What about the country you live in? The United States of America? "It's the only country in the world I'd want to live in." Number 6. And what about your faith in God? "I don't think I could have gotten through this without some help from God." Peale pushed the list across the table. A wonderful wife. 3 devoted children. Friends who held him in esteem. Integrity. Good health. Living in a land of opportunity. And religious faith. "I thought you told me everything had been swept away," he said gently. The man grinned, ashamed. "I guess I didn't think of those things." His facts hadn't changed. The money was still gone. But his attitude toward the facts was beginning to shift. He wasn't defeated. He just thought he was. He had been so focused on what was against him that he'd forgotten all the powerful forces that were for him. This is a profound lesson. When you feel defeated, stop focusing on the forces against you. Take out a piece of paper and make a list of the forces that are for you. You will find that your assets are far greater than you imagine. But what happens when the problem isn't a lack of confidence, but a constant, grinding sense of worry? Peale says that worry is one of the most destructive habits a person can have. He quotes a physician who calls it the most subtle and destructive of all human diseases. In fact, the word worry comes from an old word meaning to choke. That's exactly what it does. It chokes off our vitality, our peace of mind, our power. So how do we break this habit? Peale's primary method is a powerful 2-step process: mind emptying and mind refilling. He suggests that at least twice a day, especially before you go to sleep, you practice actively emptying your mind. This isn't just a passive exercise. He wants you to use creative imagination. Picture yourself opening a tap at the bottom of your mind and letting all the worries, fears, anxieties, and resentments drain out. Watch them flow away until your mind is clear and clean. He tells the story of being on a ship and suggesting to passengers that they go to the stern, take their worries out of their minds, and physically drop them overboard, watching them disappear in the ship's wake. One man, a prominent leader in his field, later told him it gave him an amazing sense of relief. But an empty mind is like a vacuum. Nature abhors it. If you leave it empty, the old worries will creep back in. So the moment you've emptied your mind, you must immediately refill it. Fill it with what? Fill it with powerful, peaceful, healthy thoughts. Thoughts of faith, courage, and hope. Peale tells a story about two men at a business conference. One was incredibly nervous, high-strung, and argumentative. He kept taking swigs from a bottle of brackish-looking nerve medicine. Finally, another man at the table said, "Bill, I can give you some medicine that will do you more good than that." He reached into his bag and pulled out a book. It was a Bible. He explained that he used to be just as tense himself. One night in a hotel room, feeling terribly on edge, he'd picked up the Gideon Bible by his bed. He started reading the Psalms and came across the 23rd Psalm. He remembered learning it as a boy. He sat there repeating the line, "He leadeth me beside the still waters, He restoreth my soul." He said it over and over, and the next thing he knew, he had fallen asleep. When he woke up, he felt completely refreshed and peaceful. Since that day, he'd carried a small Bible with him everywhere, marking the passages that brought him peace. He had learned to fill his mind with healing words. This is the key. You cannot fight a negative thought with a blank mind. You have to replace it with a stronger, positive thought. And as Peale points out, faith is the most powerful positive thought there is. Fear is an incredibly powerful thought, but faith is the one power against which fear cannot stand. Master faith, and you will automatically master fear. Now, this process of refilling the mind brings us to another one of Peale's most powerful tools, the practice of prayer. For Peale, prayer is not a formal religious ritual reserved for church. It's a practical, scientific technique for releasing spiritual energy. He shares a simple 3-step formula he learned from a successful businessman: 1. Prayerize, 2. Picturize, 3. Actualize. Prayerize means to make prayer a constant, running conversation with a higher power, whom he thinks of as a partner. Not some distant, shadowy being, but a close associate who is with you in your office, in your car, on the street. You talk over every decision, every problem, in a natural, normal way. Picturize is the next step. This is the act of creating a vivid mental image of your desired outcome. Don't just vaguely hope for success, see it. Print a clear, detailed picture of it on your mind and hold it there tenaciously. This isn't just daydreaming. Peale believed that the mind has a deep, innate tendency to bring into reality the pictures you hold in it. Actualize is the final step, where the thing you have prayerized and picturized comes to pass. He tells an incredible story about a woman whose marriage was falling apart. Her husband was seeing another woman and had asked for a divorce. The woman was hysterical, but her minister gave her this formula. He told her to stop focusing on the negative reality and start building a new, positive picture in her mind. She agreed with her husband to wait 90 days before making a final decision. Night after night, her husband went out, and she sat home alone. But instead of despairing, she began to picturize. She vividly imagined him sitting in his old armchair, reading comfortably as he used to. She pictured them playing golf together, taking hikes, even drying the dishes together like they did when they were first married. She held this picture with unwavering faith. One night, she looked up, and there he was, sitting in his chair. It was no longer a picture, it was reality. He started spending more and more nights at home. One Saturday, he asked her if she wanted to play a game of golf. When the 90th day arrived, she quietly reminded him of their agreement. "The 90th day?" he asked, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "We agreed to decide about the divorce today," she said. He looked at her for a moment, then disappeared behind his newspaper. "Don't be silly," he mumbled. Where did you ever get the idea I was going to leave you? She had prayerized, she had picturized, and the result was actualized. She had used the power of her mind, guided by faith, to reshape her world. Of course, to have this kind of mental power, you need energy. But so many of us feel drained, tired, and perpetually run down. What's the secret to having constant energy? Peale says that our physical energy is profoundly connected to our emotional and spiritual state. He quotes a physician who says, "It is not hard work that drains off energy but emotional upheaval. The biggest energy leaks are not from physical exertion, but from things like fear, resentment, guilt, and inner conflict." Think about it. When your mind is intensely interested in something, you can work for hours and not feel tired. But when your mind is bored or filled with negative emotions, even simple tasks feel exhausting. A friend of Peale's, an energetic and vital man, said he goes to church every week to get his batteries recharged. This is more than a metaphor. Peale believed that God is the source of all energy in the universe, atomic, electrical, and spiritual. When we are in spiritual contact with that source, through our thoughts and prayers, that divine energy flows through us, constantly renewing us. One of the greatest destroyers of energy is living at the wrong tempo. We live in a hectic, high-speed age. We rush, we press, we strain. This creates tension, and tension is a massive energy drain. Peale's advice is to synchronize your personal speed with God's rhythm. God's rhythm is slow, deliberate, powerful, and unhurried. He gets things done, and they are done right, without fuming or fretting. To find this rhythm, Peale suggests simple things. Go outside and lie on the earth. Listen to the wind in the trees, the murmur of insects. Feel the steady, unhurried tempo of nature. He tells a delightful story about a high-strung manufacturer who learned to start his day by watching a bird. He noticed the bird didn't leap out of its nest in a panic. It woke up slowly, stretched one wing, then the other, took a little nap, then stretched again before finally singing a song of praise to the new day. The man decided to try it himself. He started his morning by sitting quietly, stretching, singing a few happy hymns, and saying a prayer. His wife thought he'd lost his mind, but he found that this slow, easy start to the day eliminated his tension and gave him peaceful, relaxed energy that lasted all day. Another great secret to energy is to lose yourself in something bigger than you are. Peale tells of a statesman who made 7 speeches in one day and was still full of energy. When asked why he wasn't tired, he replied, "Because I believe absolutely in everything I said in those speeches. I am enthusiastic about my convictions." He was on fire for something. When you are pouring yourself into a cause you believe in, you don't lose energy, you generate it. You only get tired when life becomes dull in your mind. The man who is out doing something isn't tired. It's the person sitting around moaning and worrying who feels drained. This brings us to a topic that many people find difficult to talk about: healing. Can faith actually heal the body? Peale approaches this with a balanced perspective. He's a firm believer in the combination of God and the doctor. He sees medical science and the science of faith as two powerful elements in the same healing process. But he shares story after story of people who experienced remarkable recoveries when faith was added to their medical treatment. He tells of a business leader who was diagnosed with a bone tumor on his jaw, a condition the doctors called practically incurable. Desperate, the man, who was not particularly religious, started reading the Bible. As he read, he not only found comfort, but he began to notice that his physical condition was improving. One day, he felt a curious inward warmth and a sense of great happiness. From that point on, his recovery was rapid. When he returned to his doctors, they were astonished to find that the symptoms had disappeared entirely. That was 14 years before he told Peale the story. What was the plus factor in his healing? Peale would say it was the faith that heals. Modern medicine is increasingly recognizing this connection. The term psychosomatic means that the mind's psyche and the body's soma are interconnected. How you think and feel has a direct impact on your physical health. Doctors are now acknowledging that emotions like resentment, guilt, and long-held fear can contribute to illnesses like high blood pressure, ulcers, and even arthritis. A physician told Peale that one of his patients literally died of grudgitis. He had harbored a hateful grudge for so long that it damaged his body, lowered his resistance, and when a physical malady struck, he didn't have the strength to fight it. The cure, then, is not just physical medicine, but spiritual medicine. It's the process of cleaning out the mind. A surgeon, for example, needs a clean, sterile environment to perform an operation. In the same way, for healing to occur, we need a clean inner environment. This means getting rid of the mental filth of hate, guilt, and fear. Peale shares the story of a sales manager who was slipping badly. His energy was gone. His creative spark had vanished. The company had sent him on vacations, but nothing helped. Finally, he was sent to Peale's clinic. It turned out he was living a life filled with sin, lies, and a deep fear of exposure. After a long, difficult process of confession, a complete emptying of his mind, he stood up, stretched his arms to the ceiling, and said, I feel good." It was a moment of profound release. He had been spiritually and emotionally cleansed. He went back to his job that day a new man, a ball of fire, as his president later described him. The inflow of new, clean, healthy thoughts can remake you. This is the central theme that runs through all of Peale's work. And this power isn't just for overcoming personal problems. It's also the key to getting people to like you. William James said that one of the deepest drives in human nature is the desire to be appreciated. We all want to be liked. We want to be popular. So, what's the secret? Peale's advice is surprisingly simple. First, become a comfortable person. An easygoing, natural, old shoe kind of individual that people can be around without feeling a sense of strain. The stiff, reserved, egotistical person never meshes with the group. He tells a story about James Farley, the famous Postmaster General, who was walking down a hotel corridor with a group of other dignitaries. They passed a maid with her service cart. While everyone else walked around her, Farley stopped, put out his hand, and said, "Hello there. How are you? I'm Jim Farley. What's your name?" He had a sincere, forthright interest in and love for people. That, Peale says, is the one basic trait that will get people to like you. Essentially, getting people to like you is merely the other side of liking them. Will Rogers famously said, "I never met a man I didn't like." He felt that way about people, and as a result, people opened up to him like flowers to the sun. If you find it hard to like someone, Peale suggests a practical exercise. Make an exhaustive list of everything you can possibly admire about that person. Every day, try to add to the list. You will be surprised to discover that even people you thought you disliked have many pleasing qualities. Another key is to build up the ego of other people. Never deflate them. When someone tells a joke, don't say, "Oh, I heard that one last week." You may feel superior for a moment, but you've just robbed that person of their little moment in the limelight. Build people up, and they will love you for it. Ultimately, all of these principles, confidence, peace of mind, energy, healing, popularity, all come back to one central source: the ability to draw upon a higher power. Peale concludes his book by emphasizing that this power is not some abstract theological concept. It is a real, available force that can be tapped into through simple, practical techniques. One of the most effective is to learn to wait upon the Lord. This doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means to stop overstraining, to stop trying to do everything in your own frantic strength. It means to relax, to rest yourself in God, and to believe that He is giving you the support and power you need. Peale learned this lesson as a young pastor, when he was working so hard that he was becoming tired and nervous. An old professor and friend took him fishing and had him lie down on a couch. He read him a passage from the Bible. "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, they shall mount up with wings as eagles, they shall run, and not be weary, and they shall walk, and not faint." That day, he learned a lesson that stayed with him for the rest of his life. Give your job all you've got, but do it in a relaxed, easy manner, knowing that you have access to a limitless reserve of power. He tells the story of a successful editor and musician who, after 2 heart attacks, felt his life was over. Peale gave him a simple prescription: saturate your mind with the New Testament and the Psalms, and practice putting your life in God's hands, believing that He was filling both him and his wife with power. The change was profound. The next spring, the man's wife told Peale, "The flowers this year are the loveliest I have ever seen. I have never heard the birds sing with such ecstasy and melody." There was an ecstatic light on her face. She had been reborn in spirit. Her health improved dramatically, and her husband experienced no more heart trouble, living a life of extraordinary vigor. They had learned to draw upon that higher power. This power is constantly available. If you open your mind to it, it will rush in like a mighty tide. It will cast out fear, hate, sickness, and weakness. It will refresh and re-strengthen your life with health, happiness, and goodness. Perhaps the most dramatic examples of this power come from the stories of alcoholics who have found sobriety through Alcoholics Anonymous. Their core principle is the admission that they are powerless over alcohol, and that they must turn their lives over to the care of a higher power. Peale tells the story of Ed, a man who, after 23 years of drinking, was on the verge of murdering his wife and her family. In a bar, about to get the final drinks he needed for courage, he ran into an old friend, Carl, whom he had always hated. But Carl was sober, drinking coffee, and had a strange light in his eyes. Carl simply invited him to an AA meeting. That invitation set in motion a chain of events: a desperate prayer to get past 7 bars, a handshake from his ex-hated friend, a meeting with men from all walks of life who were sober and happy, that led to a rebirth. He could never have done it alone. He had tried 1,000 times and failed. But he drew upon a higher power, and that power did it. The message of the power of positive thinking is this: there is no problem, no difficulty, no defeat that you cannot overcome. The power to do so is not a magical gift bestowed upon a lucky few. It is the result of learning and practicing a set of simple, workable, spiritual laws. Change your thoughts, and you change your world. Fill your mind with faith, and you will have no room for fear. Expect the best, and you will get it. And above all, know that you are not alone. There is a higher power, a loving and supportive partner, ready to give you all the strength, all the guidance, and all the peace you will ever need. You have only to ask, to believe, and to open yourself to receive it. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through the power of positive thinking, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on why this book, written over 70 years ago, continues to resonate so deeply with millions of people. In our modern, often cynical world, it can be easy to dismiss the principles of positive thinking as simplistic or naive. But to do so would be to miss the profound wisdom that lies at its core. The most powerful lesson, for me, is not just about being positive. It's about the radical idea that we are the primary architects of our own mental and emotional worlds. Peale's central message is one of profound personal agency. He tells us that unhappiness, worry, and defeat are not inevitable conditions forced upon us by the world. They are often habits we have learned and cultivated. And because they are habits, they can be unlearned and replaced. This is an incredibly empowering idea. It means you are not a helpless victim of your circumstances or your feelings. You have the power to change. You can alter your life by altering your attitudes of mind. This was a revolutionary concept in 1952, and it remains just as revolutionary today. The book's genius lies in its practicality. Peale doesn't just offer abstract philosophy, he provides concrete, step-by-step techniques. The mind-emptying exercise, the prayerize, picturize, actualize formula, the use of affirmations on cards, these are not just quaint ideas. They are scientifically sound psychological tools, wrapped in the language of faith. They are methods for reprogramming the subconscious mind, for changing the deeply ingrained thought patterns that dictate our behavior and our feelings. What also stands out is the book's deep compassion. Peale writes with a genuine love for what he calls the plain people of this world. He understands the pain, the struggle, and the difficulty of human existence. He's not promising a life free of problems. Instead, he's offering a set of tools to face those problems with a new source of strength, peace, and resilience. He teaches us that peace of mind is not an escape from life, but a power center from which we can live more constructively. So, how can you start applying these principles in your own life, right now? You don't need to make a dozen sweeping changes. Start with something small. First, try Peale's suggestion for starting your day. Before you even get out of bed tomorrow, before you check your phone or let the worries of the day rush in, lie still for 1 minute. Say aloud, 3 times, a simple, powerful affirmation. This is going to be a glorious day. Or, as drive. Polling suggested, simply, I believe. I believe. I believe. Feel the shift in your mindset as you consciously choose a positive outlook. Second, practice the art of mind emptying tonight. Before you go to sleep, close your eyes for just 5 minutes. Visualize a tap at the bottom of your mind. Mentally, open it and watch every worry, every fear, every resentment from the day drain away. Then, consciously fill that empty space with a peaceful image, a quiet lake, a starry sky, a feeling of gratitude. Notice how this simple act can calm your nervous system and prepare you for a more restful sleep. And finally, pick just one little negative to eliminate from your vocabulary for the next 24 hours. Maybe it's saying, I'm so tired, or this is going to be so hard. Every time you catch yourself about to say it, stop. Replace it with a positive alternative, even if you don't fully believe it at first. Say, I have energy, or I can handle this. This small act of verbal discipline can begin the process of retraining your entire thought pattern. The power of this book is not in just reading it, but in living it. It's in the daily practice of choosing faith over fear, hope over despair, and love over resentment. It's in the slow, steady work of remaking your inner world so that you can, in turn, remake your outer one. That was a summary of The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. We've certainly hit the highlights today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true magic happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has stirred something in you, if it has sparked a little bit of hope or curiosity, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please take a moment to click that subscribe button. We're building a community of curious minds here, and by subscribing, you ensure you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.